Hi, my name is Benjamin Klein, and my portfolio project is a simple Pokedex web app which provides information on all the Pokemon. The main technologies used are React and the Poke API, with Bootstrap for styling and a library called chart.js for displaying animated graphs. You can see here that the main display is a Bootstrap navbar and a set of responsive cards for each of the Pokemon. When the viewport size is changed, the cards will shrink to match, eventually switching from 6 cards per row on large screens to 3 cards per row on medium and only a single card on very small screens. When the cards are clicked, a Bootstrap modal pops up which displays the Pokemon's sprite, stats, and description. Most of the API calls to the Poke API were simple enough to figure out and have the data display in the cards and the modal, so the main challenge with this project was the styling. I initially had the stats displayed as just key value pairs in plain text, which looked pretty boring, so I looked for a way to display them with a bar graph and found chart.js. In addition to making attractive graphs, the library also includes basic animation. You can see this when a card is opened, it populates the stats with a subtle left-to-right animation. Another styling challenge was how to style the individual cards themselves, because I didn't want them to just be plain white boxes, but I also didn't want to go through the trouble of making or finding individual background images for all of them, so I compromised at making their backgrounds different colors based on the type of Pokemon they are, such as red for fire type, green for grass type, blue for water type, and so on. The complication is that some Pokemon, such as Charizard here, have 2 types, so I opted for a simple color gradient like this in the case of Pokemon with multiple types. I like the way this turned out and makes the cards look visually distinct and easier to look for Pokemon of a specific type. The last notable feature, and one of my favorites, is the search bar, which allows you to search for a specific Pokemon. It uses the useState hook to update and populate the search results dynamically. As you can see, it filters out Pokemon when I type STARM until only StarMie is displayed. This is the sort of thing that makes React more powerful and simple at the same time than vanilla JavaScript, where this sort of functionality would require an event listener on the scroll bar, functions to filter the string entered, and DOM manipulation to display results rather than a simple useState hook. The code itself for this project is relatively simple. Most of the logic for the app is in the app.js file. The data is fetched from Poke API, we have our search function, our Bootstrap navbar, and a Bootstrap container to hold all of the cards. The Pokemon card component controls the logic and styling for the individual cards, including opening and closing the details modal and giving the cards their background colors. The colors are just hard-coded by type here and defaults to white if the API call doesn't return a type for whatever reason. The Pokemon details component handles what is displayed in the modal. Another challenge I had was getting the Pokemon descriptions to display properly. From what I can tell, the Poke API is scraping all of their data directly from the Game Boy cartridges, so there's some strange characters and formatting in the text strings, which I assume is to get them to fit on the Game Boy's 2.5-inch screen and the cartridge's 8MB storage capacity. I used a regex function to clean this up so it reads more normally. This is the chart.js part of the code. It took a little bit of work to figure out, but I like how the graphs turned out for the most part. I tried to add the stats to the bar graphs themselves with a library called data labels, but was unable to figure that out in time, so the stats are displayed when you mouse over the bar graphs instead. Some additional features I plan on implementing would be to add more info to the details component, further UI improvements such as making the Bootstrap navbar stay at the top of the screen as you scroll so that you can use the search bar anywhere on the page, adding user authentication so that users can bookmark their favorite Pokemon, and implementing later generations of Pokemon. The async call to load all 1025 Pokemon and populate all the cards took longer than I liked, so I opted to simply load the first 151 from the first generation, and I will add the rest as separate async calls which can be made with this drop-down menu on the navbar. Thank you for watching. I plan to keep improving this project, so check out my GitHub if you would like to follow my progress. Peace.